Hello and welcome to day 6 of my 30-day challenge to go live every day. We have talked about how to improve your English in the last few days, and today I want to quickly review all of the points that we talked about. So on day 1, we talked about having a goal. It's important to know why you want to improve your English. And we talked about having a deadline, having a date to finish, to achieve your goal. So, for example, you want to increase your level in 6 months. This would be your goal, your objective, and your date. And the third thing we mentioned on the first day was to have a plan. So it's really important to plan how you're going to improve your English. So those are the 3 things that we need to do first if we want to improve our English. And the next thing we talked about on the next day was how many hours we needed to dedicate to this goal. So as an example and an approximation, very approximate example, it takes about 200 hours to move from one level to the next. This depends on the level. It depends on how actively you study. It depends on how naturally languages come to you. It depends on a lot of things. But it's useful to have an idea of how many hours so you can plan. So, for example, if you want to improve one level in 6 months, you want to move from A2 to B1, for example, and it's 200 hours. You need to do around 8 hours per week in English, which sounds like a lot. But that brings us on to our next day when we talked about immersion in English and how we can try to incorporate English into our lives as much as possible, and to also try to do it in things that we're already doing. So, for example, you might go to English class once or twice a week or have class online with a private teacher, but you can also do a lot of other things to improve your English at the same time. For example, you can listen to podcasts while you're exercising or driving. You can watch your movie in English instead of your own language with the subtitles to begin with, of course. Lots of things that you can do to incorporate English into your life already because you're super busy, so maybe you don't have a lot of time. And the other thing we talked about was in the next day, we talked about the different ways to incorporate English into your life, the different ways of learning. So we mentioned formal versus informal learning. And we said that a combination of both is good. Formal learning could be doing a course, going to a class, attending an academy, using an online app every day. This is a more formal, structured way to learn, which can also be very useful, especially if you're at the beginning of learning a language. But informal learning is quite useful as well. This is when you're doing things like listening to podcasts, watching the movie, reading the books, reading the news, things like that, having conversations with people. Both very useful. Then we talked about passive versus active learning. So passive learning would be when you are listening to English while doing something else. So you don't have like 100% concentration on English, So this is more passive. Then active learning is when you are trying to concentrate 100% on the learning process. And this is obviously more beneficial, but also impossible all the time. So in order to immerse yourself more in English, it's okay to do some passive while you're doing something else, listen to English and things like that. It doesn't always have to be super concentrated and 100%. The reason I say this is because this might stop you from studying so much, because it's always something that you have to do. You have to sit down and study, and and then it becomes a task because you need to enjoy the process as well. You need to try to enjoy learning, enjoy the challenge. and you're not going to enjoy it if it's always a task that you have to do. So if you incorporate it into your life more and it becomes more natural, maybe you start enjoying it more, which is great. Perfect. So the next day we talked about using challenges to learn English. So maybe you would incorporate a challenge into your plan every day or every week, or for 21 days is a good time apparently to create a habit, or for 1 month. So say, for example, you say, okay, in January, I'm going to read something in English every day. In February, I'm going to listen to something in English every day, just 10 minutes every day. In March, I'm going to try to speak to someone or read aloud in English every day. So try to use challenges to improve your English and push your English a little bit more, drive it forward. Then the next day, I think the final day, we talked about changing all our devices and apps into English. So instead of checking your phone in your local language, you're checking it in English. Or instead of downloading an app in your language, download it in English. So this can be very useful to expose yourself to more English. Also a little bit difficult at the start, maybe, because you're maybe not accustomed to the vocabulary. But if you try it and you persevere and you stick with it longer and longer, you will learn more vocabulary and you will be exposing yourself to more English, which is why you're doing it. So those are the tips that we have done so far. In the next week, obviously, the rest of the 30 days, we're going to be doing more. So listen out for them. The last thing I want to say is the biggest thing about learning a new skill like English is planning and being consistent, creating habits. So try to do that if you can. I'm going to put in the comments links to our online course, which is called 3 Steps to Fluency, which gives you step-by-step plan to help you create your own personalized schedule. And you can also join our email that we send out every week with resources to help you with your English improvement divided by level. So I hope this was useful and see you again tomorrow.